Ah, the ground. Sturdy, reliable, the place we all live. The Hoenn region is famous for its lack of ground. In spite of that, it doesn't seem to be lacking in ground-type Pokemon. And because of that, I decided to attempt a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Emerald using only ground-type Pokemon. As always, a full list of the rules will be in the description below. Let's take a quick look at the available ground-type Pokemon. As you can see, there's a surprising amount of diversity when it comes to the secondary typing. This one should be fun. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Let's get started. The journey begins with me being stuffed into the back of a moving truck like a piece of furniture. The truck stops and I hop out and... Wait, my mom is already in the house? And my dad is in the next town over. Who was driving that truck? I walk into the neighbor's house without knocking, and finally somebody in the Pokemon world reacts in a normal way to a stranger barging into their house. I go upstairs and May comes on way too strong. Settle down, little lady. We just met. I head north and this little girl tells me that there's something scary up ahead. Then she suggests that I go check it out. I ignore every instinct that I have from my years of watching horror movies and find Professor Birch being chased by a Zigzagoon. He asks for my help, and in return I get the first encounter of the run, a Mudkip, that will eventually evolve into the ground type. Normally I would box it as soon as I get an actual ground type Pokemon, but the only one available prior to the first gym is Nincada. And while in Ruby and Sapphire it is possible to defeat the first gym with just a Nincada, in Emerald the gym leader has a second Geodude, making it virtually impossible barring insanely good luck with literally a dozen missed rock throws and rock tombs. As a result, I decided it was fair game to use Mudkip before the first gym. I name her Toph, and she has a timid nature which is plus speed and minus attack. The speed is nice, but losing attack is not. I level her up a bit and defeat May, then head over to Petalburg to see my dad. Then Wally walks in and my dad makes me go with him to make sure he catches a Pokemon safely. I will never forget this betrayal, old man. In the Petalburg woods, I come across a man spinning around. Then he approaches me and asks if I've seen any Shroomish. I don't know, buddy. Why don't you try spinning around in the tall grass instead? After defeating the Aqua Grunt and making it through the woods, I head through Rustboro City and find the next team member, Nincada. Now, Nincada won't get to evolve as it loses its ground type upon evolution, but I catch him and I name him Fong. He has a modest nature which is plus special attack and minus attack, which is horrible. Now it's time for the first gym. Roxanne is obviously quite easy as Toph is able to one-shot both Geodude with Water Gun. Her nose pass would be a bit more challenging, but Toph immediately lands a critical hit with Water Gun. After her berry and a few potions, Nose Pass does retaliate with a critical hit tackle, before eventually going down. I wish the level cap were one level higher so I could have used Marsh Stomp instead. Granted, it would have been easier, I wouldn't have felt a little bit guilty about using Water type. I could have chosen to do this run in Ruby or Sapphire in order to beat Roxanne with just Nincada, however I feel the overall quality of the run would be better in Emerald, so here we are. After defeating Roxanne, I save Mr. Briney's Wingull from an Aqua Grunt, and as a reward he sails me over to Dewford Town, which is the home of our next encounter. In Granite Cave, I'm able to catch Geodude, who I named the Boulder. The Boulder also has a modest nature. What's with these terrible natures? At this point, neutral would be a gift. I traverse through the cave and find Steven to deliver his letter to him. Then I train up the team and get ready for the next gym. Brawly leads off with a Machop, and I send in Toph. She hits a strong mud shot which does just over half, then gets hit with a low kick before taking down the Machop. Monotype comes in next and I go for Water Gun as he unfortunately sets up Reflect. On the next turn, however, Toph lands a critical hit Water Gun which knocks out Monotype. Last up is Makuhita, and Toph lands yet another critical hit Water Gun which activates his Citrus Berry. Then he goes for a Bulk Up. Another Water Gun brings it to about half, and then Vital Throw crits and brings Toph to just 1 HP before her Oran Berry heals her. Obviously she can't take another hit from this thing, but the Boulder most certainly can. And even if Fong can, he's not going to do very much. Because Toph is in Torrent range, I think there's a chance that Water Gun might KO from here. So, I go for it and it does just enough to take out Makuhita. Man, that was way too close. If I lost Toph there, I might as well have moved on to attempt 2 because she's way too important to the team. We sail over to Slateport where Team Aqua is once again causing problems. I quickly take care of them and then head north for one of the only difficult rival battles of the run. May leads with a Wingull, so I send out Toph. I use Tackle, but thanks to Growl, it's a 4-hit KO. In comes her Grovyle, and the only team member that isn't 4 times weak to grass is Fong. I send him in on an Absorb. Then he gets hit with Pursuit, but fortunately Leech Life is super effective and heals him, because otherwise he wouldn't stand a chance. After that and an Oranberry heal, another Leech Life finishes off Grovyle. Last in is Slugma, so I send in the Boulder who tanks an Ember, then lands a Magnitude 7 and earns us the victory. I make it to Mauville, and I come to find Wally standing in front of the gym. I overhear him say, "If I combine forces with Ralts, we can beat anyone." Then he immediately turns to me and says, "Oh, hi Kyle," and challenges me to a battle. It goes very poorly for him. Normally, Wattson is one of the tougher battles in the Nuzlocke, but seeing as I have a team full of ground Pokemon, I'm sure you can guess how this one went. The Boulder has absolutely no problem sweeping through his entire team with Magnitude. And after the battle, he evolves into Graveler. Now that Wattson is defeated, I can use Rock Smash and head north to get a new team member, a Numel that I catch and I name Kiyoshi. Kiyoshi has a rash nature, which is plus special attack and minus special defense. Finally, a Pokemon that has a non-detrimental nature. I make my way through Fall Arbor Town and into Meteor Falls, only to find Team Magma and Team Aqua up to no good again. I head up to the top of Mount Chimney and I clear out Team Magma and make my way to Maxie. He leads with Mightyena and I lead with Kiyoshi. She gets hit with a sand attack, but connects with an Ember. Then she gets hit pretty hard with a Bite, and a second Ember takes Mightyena to about a third. I swap into the Boulder, but Bite does more than I expected. A second brings him to just 14 HP, and he finishes it off with Magnitude. Camerupt comes in, so I swap to Toph as he goes for Focus Energy. Water Gun does about 2/3 before she gets hit with a critical hit tackle. A second Water Gun takes it out, and Zubat comes in. Water Gun doesn't do much, but neither do his wing attacks. 3 Water Guns takes out the Zubat and finishes off Maxie. I head down to Lava Ridge Town, where the 4th gym awaits. Flannery leads with a Numel, and Toph is able to one-shot it with Water Gun. Slugma comes in and suffers a similar fate, except with a Mud Shot instead. Camerupt is too bulky to take out in one hit, and unfortunately sets up a Sunny Day, which is not good, as not only does it weaken Toph's Water Gun, but her Torkoal is lying in wait and knows Overheat. A second Water Gun does still do enough to knock out Camerupt, and then Torkoal comes in. Because of the sun, I go for Mud Shot, which doesn't do much thanks to Torkoal's high defense. She hits with Body Slam, but fortunately it doesn't paralyze. A second Mud Shot takes Torkoal just below half, and another Body Slam takes Toph to about half as well, and she dodges another Paralysis. From here, I'm worried that Overheat will do enough to knock out Toph, so I send in Fong to face the fiery heat of a sun-boosted Overheat, and our little friend is scorched. His sacrifice is not in vain, as this allows for a clean switch into the Boulder, who lands a Magnitude 8 and knocks out Torkoal, earning us our 4th badge. While losing a team member is always painful, as I exit the gym, May gives me the Go Goggles, which will let me travel into the desert and find a few new team members to fill the Ninkata-sized hole in my heart. There are 3 possible encounters in here, and I can only get 2 of them. One from the desert and one from Mirage Tower, which counts as a separate area. I opt to go into Mirage Tower first and end up running into a Trapinch, which I catch and I name Boomy. Boomy has an impish nature, which is plus defense and minus special attack. Not particularly great either. The other encounter turns out to be a Sandshrew, which means I won't be able to get a Claydol until much later on. I name her Oma, and she has a brave nature, which is plus attack and minus speed, which is actually pretty good. Losing speed is generally a bad thing, but she's not really going to be outspeeding anybody anyway, so I'll take the boost in attack. She quickly evolves into a Sandslash. Unfortunately, at level 31, the level cap is just shy of allowing Kiyoshi to evolve. This means the only fully evolved Pokemon on the team is Sandslash. Not an ideal scenario, as I have to head back to Petalburg and get revenge on my father for making me hang out with Wally earlier. He leads with Spinda, and I lead with Oma. Slash does just over half, and Spinda goes for Psybeam. A second Slash crits and takes it down. Sure would have been nice to get that crit on the first turn, but whatever. Vigoroth then comes in and goes for Slash, and Oma goes for Dig. It does just under half as she gets hit by another Slash to just 43 HP before her Oranberry heals her. Dig brings Vigoroth to the red and then he heals. I opt to go for another Dig on the heal turn, as Vigoroth will outspeed and attack while Oma is still underground. I swap into the Boulder on a Slash. Then he tanks a feint attack before landing a Rock Smash and gets the defense drop. Another feint attack takes him to 32 HP before the level up and Oranberry heal him a bit after finishing off Vigoroth with a Rock Throw. Slacken comes in and anticipating a feint attack I swap into Boomy, but he just goes for counter. After a Sand Tomb does next to nothing, I go for another and he goes for a counter. Boomy isn't going to be very useful here, he's just here to do some chip damage. He misses his third Sand Tomb, and on an attacking turn, I switch back into the boulder and he gets hit with Facade. Rock Smash then gets a clutch defense drop on the truant turn. Toph comes in on a feint attack, then Mudshot lowers his speed but activates his Citrus Berry. A second Mudshot connects and he retaliates with a counter and takes Toph to just 32 HP after the berry. A third Mudshot connects and brings him low, then I send in Kyoshi, who gets nailed with a Facade to just 5 HP before her berry. Fortunately, Slacking is an overheat range and Kyoshi knocks it out. But we're not out of the woods yet. Linoon comes in, and if this thing uses Belly Drum, we're in serious trouble. My hope is that at 18 HP, he sees a kill and attacks instead. I swap back into Oma and he does go for Slash. A second Slash brings Oma to just 15 HP and I go for Dig, which does just over half but takes it out of Belly Drum range. My only healthy team member left is Boomy, so I send him in on a Slash but he takes way too much damage. I send in the Boulder on a Slash and he survives with just 16 HP. I know he can survive another non-critical hit and I don't really have many other options, so I stay in and thankfully no crit. But Linoon survives a Rock Throw on what must be 1 HP. He heals with a Hyper Potion and Rock Throw does a bit less than half. At this point, there's no way to avoid a death. I need to sacrifice somebody to get a clean switch into Toph. I send in Oma and she turns back to look at me, with tears in her eyes, then turns and accepts her fate. Toph comes in and tanks a Facade to just 11 HP, and then lands a Mudshot which lowers Linoon's speed, and now she outspeeds, and a second Mudshot takes it out. After earning the 5th badge, I get access to Surf, and this Fisherman gives me a Good Rod. This allows me to fish up a new team member that will fill the void left behind by Oma. West of Fall Arbor Town, I fish up a Barboach and catch her and name her Lynn. Lynn also has a brave nature, which is fine I guess, but not ideal. Surf also allows me to get access to the Sunken Ship, where I'm able to get the TM for Ice Beam, which is going to be huge for the next gym. One of the nice things about Route 119 is that because of the rain, Lynn can easily train against the trainers and wild Pokemon with rain-boosted Surf. Eventually she evolves into a Whiscash. I put her to the test against the Aqua admin in the Weather Institute, and she handles the battle easily. I'm then given a cast form as a thank you, but all I'm interested in is the Mystic Water that it's holding. With the level cap at 33, Kyoshi has just enough room to evolve into a Camerupt. I head east from the Weather Institute and May shows up for another battle. The downside to the rain is my only answer to her Grovyle is Kyoshi, whose fire moves will be weakened. She leads with Slugma and I lead with Kyoshi, who knocks it out with a Magnitude. She sends out Lombre next, and after a fake out flinch, she hits a weak Swift and Kyoshi hits a weak Ember. Lombre then hits a critical hit Absorb as Rock Slide takes it low. Swift takes Kyoshi to 50 HP and another Rock Slide finishes off Lombre. Now her Grovyle comes in, and Leaf Blade hits Kyoshi to just 16 HP. I'm very lucky that wasn't a crit. In spite of the rain, an Overheat is enough to knock out Grovyle, and after defeating her, May gives me the HM for Fly. After clearing out the gym trainers, I get ready to challenge Winona. She leads with Swablu and I lead with Toph, who I taught Ice Beam. Unfortunately, she can't knock out Swablu in one hit, and after tanking a Mirror Move Ice Beam, a second knocks it out. Tropius comes in next and it's 4 times weak to Ice. The only grass move it knows is Solar Beam, so I expect her to go for Sunny Day. Ice Beam unfortunately doesn't do enough to KO, but fortunately Winona opts to go for Solar Beam instead. This means she can't heal, and Toph is able to finish her off with a second Ice Beam. Pelipper comes in next, so I swap to Lynn on a Protect. Pelipper goes for another Protect and then misses a Supersonic. Lynn lands a Rock Tomb and now she outspeeds, and lands a second but Supersonic connects and she gets confused. Lynn is able to break through and land another Rock Tomb and knock out Pelipper. Skarmory comes in, so I send in Kyoshi, who tanks an Aerial Ace. Then a Sand Attack lowers her accuracy, but she's unfazed and connects with an Overheat to KO Skarmory. Last up is her ace, Altaria, so I send Toph back in as she sets up a Dragon Dance. She gets off a second, but Toph lands an Ice Beam and gets the freeze. That was super lucky, because at +2, Altaria was getting pretty scary. This allows Toph to easily knock it out on the following turn and earns us the 6th badge. With the level cap finally at 42, Boomy can evolve into a Vibrava and be somewhat useful now. Toph can also evolve into a Swampert. I go get the Pokeblock case because there's 2 potential encounters in the Safari Zone. I can either get a Phampi or a Rhyhorn. Seeing as I already have the Boulder, I was going to pick Phampi, but looking at Donphan's moves, or lack thereof, I changed my mind and ended up getting Rhyhorn as an insurance policy for the boulder just in case tragedy strikes. I name him Haru, and he has a gentle nature, which is plus special defense and minus defense. I need access to the Lily Cove department store, but May is blocking the entrance. Then she challenges us to one last battle. She leads with Tropius, but now that Toph is fully evolved, she can one-shot it with Ice Beam. Grovyle comes in, and I switch to Kyoshi, who tanks a Leaf Blade. I risk another crit, and am once again unpunished by my greed, and Kyoshi lands her overheat for the KO. Slugma comes in, and Kyoshi gets a critical hit magnitude for the KO. Pelipper comes in, so I send out Lyn, and after stalling with a few protects, eventually she goes down to a Rock Tomb. With May out of the way, I pick up a few TMs to save for later. Then, on my way to Mount Pyre, the boulder evolves into Golem. Up at Mount Pyre, Archie is harassing this old couple. Then he takes the orb and leaves. Then, after they're already gone, the old woman tells me that the orbs can never be separated. Why are you telling me all of this? Shouldn't you have just told him before he ran off? All of this could have been avoided. Now I have to go clean up this whole mess, and she gives me the Magma emblem so I can enter the Magma hideout. I clear out the hideout and find Maxie, and this genius is holding a blue orb to wake up a giant red Pokemon, and unsurprisingly, it doesn't work out for him. He then redirects his anger at me, when really, he's just angry at himself. He leads with Mightyena, and I lead with Lyn. Swagger confuses her and she hurts herself in confusion. I decide to switch out to Toph on a takedown, then Toph hits a critical hit Surf for the KO. Crobat comes in and lands a Confuse Ray, which causes Toph to hurt herself twice, so I have to switch out into the boulder. Crobat lands Bite and the boulder hits a Rock Throw to just over half. Then Maxie uses a Super Potion and another Rock Throw brings it into the red. Another Super Potion isn't enough this time, as a third Rock Throw takes it out. Camerupt comes in, so I send in Boomy on an Earthquake. Then I send out Lyn on Amnesia, which isn't enough to save him from one-hit KO from Surf. Maxie runs off in disgrace. Then in Slateport, Archie steals a submarine. After clearing out the Aqua hideout, the submarine leaves after I defeat the admin. I leave Team Aqua alone for now and then head over to Moss Deep City, where the 7th gym awaits. The 7th gym is a double battle with Tate and Liza, and depending on your team, this can be really difficult. They lead with Claydol and Xatu, and I lead with Lyn and Toph. Xatu goes for Calm Mind, and Toph once again lands a critical hit Surf on both of them. Toph, you rule. Claydol hits a weak Earthquake, and Lyn knocks out Claydol with a Surf, and barely damages Xatu. Solrock comes in, and Xatu hits Lyn to the red with Psychic. Toph then hits a Surf, and Solrock goes for a Solar Beam. Lyn hits Surf and takes out Xatu, but leaves Solrock with a Sliver. Lyn is too low, so I swap in Boomy, and Toph outspeeds Solrock and knocks it out with Surf before Solar Beam connects. Lunatone is now in a 2v1 and hits Boomy hard with Psychic, but a Surf and a Crunch combo are enough to take it down and earn us the 7th badge. I exit the gym to find Team Magma once again up to some sort of shenanigans. I team up with Steven to take on Maxie and Tabitha. They lead with Mightyena and Camerupt. I go for Surf with Toph, which takes out Camerupt, then Metang sets up a light screen. Ice Beam then takes the Golbat that comes into the red. Then Mightyena and Golbat both go to confuse Metang, but one happens to be Swagger, which raises its attack. Toph then finishes them both off with Surf after Metang hurts itself in confusion. Crobat and Mightyena come in and Metang snaps out of confusion and lands a Psychic on Crobat. Mightyena then uses Swagger on Toph and confuses her and she hurts herself. Then another Psychic takes out Crobat. Camerupt comes in, and Mightyena uses Swagger on the already confused Metang, raising its attack to +4. I swap out Toph for Lyn, and this Metang one-shots Mightyena with Metal Claw. Lyn hits a Surf, but Camerupt survives at 1 HP thanks to Amnesia, but a second one takes it out. With Team Magma out of the way once again, I hunt for the Team Aqua submarine, and I finally find it at the seafloor cavern. After making my way through, I find Kyogre, and Archie approaches and challenges me to a battle. I lead with Boomy against Mightyena and go for Dragon Breath, and he misses a Swagger. A second Dragon Breath paralyzes, and he's fully paralyzed. Archie heals with a Super Potion, and after 2 more Dragon Breaths, he's fully paralyzed again. After a fly, one last Dragon Breath takes it out. Crobat comes in, so I switch to Kyoshi, who tanks 2 wing attacks, then lands a Rock Slide to just under half. I don't want to risk a crit here, so I send in the boulder as Archie uses another Super Potion. He then goes for Bite and flinches us. Then the boulder outspeeds due to his Quick Claw and lands a Rock Throw. But he gets hit with Confuse Ray. He breaks through the confusion and dodges another Bite flinch, then lands the fatal Rock Throw. Sharpedo comes in, but this fool hasn't taught him a single water move. so I stay in and Boulder breaks through confusion again and hits a rock throw. He does hit himself in confusion, but his Sharpedo just goes for taunt 3 times in a row, and the Boulder snaps out of confusion and finishes it off. After losing, instead of listening to me explain that the orb is the wrong color, he ignores me and pisses off the ancient legendary sea creature. This game's story is a lesson for toxic masculinity. Kyogre then storms off and starts to literally flood the earth. Archie and Maxie then do something not enough people do nowadays. Self-reflect and acknowledge their mistakes. Good job, fellas. I head to Sootopolis and Groudon and Kyogre are having a staring contest. I'm not gonna lie, this seems a bit unfair in favor of Kyogre. Surrounded by water, type advantage, and it's raining? I understand the uphill battle Groudon has ahead of him. As a ground user myself, for far too long, we've been put down by the water Pokemon of Hoenn. We understand each other. I head inside the Cave of Origin and Wallace asks me to tell him where Rayquaza is, as if a random child somehow has access to this information. I take a random guess and say Sky Pillar, and he immediately assumes I'm correct and he runs off. The adult men in this game really need to go to therapy. I head over to the Sky Pillar, and this is the location of my last team member, Claydol. I named them Tyro, and they have a gentle nature, which is excellent because I can EV train Tyro and then make them a specially defensive wall. Over on Route 114 there are tons of Swablu, Lotad, and Lombre which all give special defense EVs. I take a break from EV training Tyro to finally evolve Boomy into a Flygon. I head back to the Sky Pillar and approach the giant dragon, and it wakes up, screams at me, and flies away. Back in Sootopolis, Rayquaza shows up, and like a disappointed parent, puts Kyogre and Groudon in timeout for fighting. Because I happen to get a Tropius to use for HMs, I'm able to show a Grass-type Pokemon to this woman, and she gives me the TM for Giga Drain, which is huge, because now it's time to take on the last gym. Juan poses a serious threat with his water types, but I think I have a decent strategy to deal with him. I lead with Tyro and I set up a light screen after his Love Disc hits a Sweet Kiss. I swap into Boomy, who takes a laughable 8 damage from a Water Pulse. Boomy then takes it out with Earthquake. This brings in Kingdra. Boomy outspeeds and lands a Dragon Breath, which brings Kingdra just under half and gets the paralysis. I set up the light screen because Boomy could survive an Ice Beam with it up, but instead he goes for Double Team. Fortunately, Boomy has no patience for this nonsense and lands a Fatal Blow with Dragon Breath. Celio comes in and I swap to Tyro, who gets crit with an Aurora Beam, then heals up with a Citrus Berry. I set up another light screen and now Aurora Beam does hardly anything. I switch to Lynn on a Body Slam and then she hits an Earthquake, which takes Celio under half. Then Lynn is paralyzed on another Body Slam. She breaks through for another Earthquake to knock out Celio, and Juan sends in his own Whiscash. I send Boomy back in and Giga Drain just misses a KO. Then Whiscash goes for Amnesia. Juan heals, and because of the Amnesia I go for Earthquake, which hits to about a third, and a second finishes it off. Crawdaunt is his last Pokemon. Boomy has seen just about enough of these water Pokemon, and lands a critical hit Earthquake to earn us the 8th badge. I head over to Evergrande City and I prepare for my journey through Victory Road. Upon entering, Wally chases me down and challenges me to a battle. He leads with Altaria, and Toph takes it out with an Ice Beam. Roselia comes in, so I swap into Kiyoshi and she avoids a Leech Seed, then gets hit on the second turn before knocking it out with an Overheat. Delcatty comes in, so I swap to Boomy, who avoids a Sing. Earthquake just misses a KO and Wally heals as Boomy hits a Dragon Breath, and then finishes it off with an Earthquake. Wally saw those Earthquakes and he thought, this is the perfect time to send in my Magneton. I don't think you're ready for the Elite Four, kid. Last is his Gardevoir, who just goes for Future Sight and then goes down to 2 Earthquakes. Sometimes I consider not showing battles like this that end up being relatively easy, but since I figured it's the last important battle before the Elite Four, it was worth keeping in the video. Do you prefer seeing these battles with rivals even if they're uneventful, or would you rather have me cut them to save time? Let me know in the comments below. I exit Victory Road, and I make it to the Elite Four. Here's a final look at the team. I feel pretty good about our matchup against some of the members, but others are going to be tricky. It's time to find out if we have what it takes. First up is Sidney. He leads with Mightyena, so I send in Kiyoshi, who knows Eruption, and easily knocks it out after a Sand attack. Crawdaunt comes in, so I swap into Toph on a Surf, and she does about 2/3 of the Brick Break, as he goes for a Swords Dance. Fortunately, he's too slow to utilize the attack boost and goes down to another Brick Break. Toph being in is going to force out Cacturn, so I swap into Boomy on a Cotton Spore. Fly isn't quite a one-hit KO, so I go for Dragon Breath, which is actually almost a two-hit KO. But I opt for Fly to make sure that Boomy gets the KO. Shiftry comes out, and thanks to the speed drops from Cotton Spore, it outspeeds and goes for Double Team, which forces a miss from Boomy. After a Torment, Boomy lands a Dragon Breath, then gets hit with Swagger and hurts himself. Now I have to switch, so I send in Kiyoshi, who also gets hit with Swagger, but thanks to a held Person Berry, she heals the confusion, then ignores the double teams and lands a fatal Flamethrower. Thanks to the attack boost that I got from Swagger, I leave Kiyoshi in and she's able to one-shot Absol for the win. Next is Phoebe and her ghost types. Her Dusclops loves to go for Protect, so I send in Tyro to set up Reflect. Shadow Ball unfortunately does just under half, and Dusclops goes for Curse and lives at 1 HP. Now I have to switch, so on the heal I send in Kiyoshi, who lands a critical hit Flamethrower to take it out. Her other Dusclops comes in, so I swap in Boomy on an Earthquake as her Reflect wears off. Then I pivot to Lynn on an Ice Beam, but she gets frozen. Great. I send in Kiyoshi on a Shadow Ball in order to bait out another Earthquake so I can get a clean switch into Tyro. We trade Shadow Balls back and forth, but hers hits much harder and activates our Citrus Berry. Then I switch to the Boulder, who outspeeds and knocks it out with Earthquake. Imagine being outsped by a golem. The Boulder then outspeeds Bayonet and one-shots with Earthquake. Sableye comes in and I set up a Sandstorm, then take it out on the next turn with Earthquake. Her last Bayonet comes in and also goes down in one shot to an Earthquake. The Boulder shows no mercy. Now it's time for one of the scariest Elite Four members, Glacia. She leads with a Celio and I set up Light Screen with Tyro as she goes for a Hail. Tyro then hits Ancient Power and gets the Omni Boost. Awesome. A second Ancient Power just misses the KO, then Tyro is paralyzed from Body Slam. Not awesome. She heals and then Hail activates Tyro's Citrus Berry. A final Ancient Power takes it down as our Light Screen wears off and Glalie comes in. Tyro survives an Ice Beam and sets up another Light Screen, but now I have to switch. I send in Toph and she goes for her own Light Screen, but Brick Break shatters it and crits for the KO. Her second Glalie comes out and Toph does over half with Brick Break, then tanks an Ice Beam and Hail damage before knocking it out with another Brick Break. Last is her Wall Rain, and it tanks a Brick Break pretty well and Toph gets hit with Ice Beam, which activates her Citrus Berry. But I decide to switch into Lynn, who gets hit with a Surf. She takes a second and then heals up with Rest, and her Chesto Berry wakes her up. She tanks an Ice Beam and then hits with an Earthquake, which activates Walrein Citrus Berry. Surf takes Lynn to 75 HP, and she gets the KO with a second Earthquake. Making it out deathless from Glacia fills the team with confidence. We're ready to take on Drake. Drake leads with Shelgon, so I lead with Toph. He loves to go for Protect, so after stalling, Toph lands an Ice Beam for the KO. Altaria comes in and Toph just misses the KO, and then he sets up a Dragon Dance. He heals, and the second Ice Beam fortunately gets the range and knocks it out before things get weird. Kingdra comes in and Toph does just over half with Earthquake, as he too sets up a Dragon Dance. But his greed gets the best of him and he goes for another, which allows Toph to get a clean KO with another Earthquake. Flygon comes in and outspeeds and hits an Earthquake before going down to an Ice Beam. Last up is his Salamence, and he hits Dragon Claw, but he too goes down to a single Ice Beam. Just in case you couldn't tell, having a Pokemon with Ice Beam is pretty helpful against Drake. And with that, we're on to the champion, Wallace. One of the main reasons that I chose Emerald for this run over Ruby and Sapphire is the final battle of the Elite Four is against a Water-type trainer, and I thought that would make the entire run a lot more exciting. He leads with Wailord and I send in Toph to hit an Earthquake, then she tanks a Blizzard. I go for Surf, hoping not to put it into heal range, then he goes for a Rain Dance, so a second Surf takes it out. Unfortunately, Ludicolo comes in, and now due to its Swift Swim ability, it's going to outspeed and go for Giga Drain, so I have to switch into Tyro, who gets crit to just 42 HP. Great. This is a brutal crit because now I can't stay in and set up a Light Screen. I have to switch into Boomy, who tanks a Giga Drain, then gets hit to just 32 HP with Surf before healing with a Citrus Berry. Fly connects, and Karma comes back around and a crit knocks out Ludicolo. Then Tentacruel comes in and goes down to an Earthquake. Milotic comes in next, so I send in Lynn on a Surf, and it crits and takes her to just 33 HP. I have no one safe to switch to, so unfortunately, I have to sacrifice Lynn here. We say our teary goodbyes and she goes down to an Ice Beam. I send in Toph, who does just over half with an Earthquake, then a second knocks it out. Wallace then taunts me with his own, still alive Whiscash. An Earthquake does under half, but he just goes for Amnesia. Then Toph doesn't take kindly to Wallace's insults and gets a crit of her own to knock it out. This battle has been pretty crazy with all these crits. His last Pokemon is Gyarados. I decide to go for Rest and then wake up from the Chesto Berry. Then I go for Ice Beam and get the freeze. The second Ice Beam takes it to half, but he defrosts and goes for Dragon Dance. Then he hits an Earthquake. I send in Boomy hoping to avoid another Earthquake, but he goes for Hyper Beam instead, and Boomy gets obliterated. That one hurt. Gyarados does have to recharge, so I send in the Boulder, who is devastated by the loss of his comrade. He grabs the biggest rock he can find and throws it at the flying fish and knocks it out, earning us the win over Wallace and the Elite Four. All things considered, losing 2 Pokemon versus the Water-type champion in a ground-only Nuzlocke isn't too bad. But the run isn't quite over yet. I add Haru to the team, and while training him up, I run into Latias, which was pretty neat. I get everyone leveled up, head into the depths of the mountain, and find Steven. He leads with Skarmory, and I send in Kiyoshi. Skarmory misses a Toxic, and Kiyoshi lands an Eruption for the KO. Aggron comes in next, so I swap into Tyro on the Earthquake. I go for a Light Screen as Aggron sets up Solar Beam. Tyro happens to have Hidden Power Water, so I go for that, but it doesn't do much. A few more turns of Hidden Powers and Solar Beams later, and Tyro knocks out Aggron. Light Screen wears off as Cradily comes in, so I set up another as it goes for Ingrain. Tyro lands a Psychic, then tanks a Giga Drain pretty well. Another Psychic brings it to half, but we get confused, so I swap into Kiyoshi on a Giga Drain. Kiyoshi then barely misses a KO with Eruption, then Steven heals. Flamethrower takes it to just above half before the Ingrain heal. Another Flamethrower takes it low again, and Giga Drain plus Ingrain heal aren't quite enough this time as the third Flamethrower finally knocks it out. Metagross comes in, and unfortunately Kiyoshi can't stay in, so I send in Tyro on an Earthquake again, then set up Reflect. Shadow Ball still does big damage, and even with the Citrus Berry heal, I have to switch to Haru. I was able to fully EV train Haru in attack, and he tanks a Psychic, then lands a critical hit Earthquake for the KO. Armaldo comes in, and I scout its next move with a Protect, and it's Water Pulse, so I send in Toph, who hits a Surf and just misses a KO. He heals, and a second Surf brings it to the red again, and Steven heals again. The same thing happens yet again, and finally he's out of full restores and accepts his fate. His last Pokemon is Claydol. Toph does just over half with Surf, but then he goes for Light Screen. It isn't enough though, as one final Surf takes it down, and with that, we've defeated Steven. That was a lot of fun. I felt like I had access to some pretty cool Pokemon, and some useful secondary typings, as well as Pokemon that I usually don't use like Claydol. If you've made it this far in the video, I'm guessing you might have liked it, or you hate watched all the way to the end. Either way works for me. If you did enjoy the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you want to see more content like this in the future, please consider subscribing to the channel as it really helps me out a lot. With that, I think it's time for me to head out. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, smell you later.